The lights dimmed in the grand hall of the Stellar Dream as Luna Kim stepped onto the stage. Her black hair fell in gentle waves over her shoulders, and her simple white dress seemed to glow under the soft spotlights. The cruise ship carried passengers from 12 different worlds, and tonight they all sat together in the same room waiting to hear her sing. Captain Jinho Park watched from the back of the hall. He had heard Luna perform many times during their journey through the outer systems, but something felt different tonight. The alien passengers seemed more restless than usual. The tall, green-skinned saurians kept shifting in their seats, their yellow eyes never leaving the stage. The crystal beings called Vexari hummed quietly among themselves, their bodies flickering with pale blue light. Luna smiled at the crowd and picked up her microphone. She had no backing music tonight, no fancy equipment, just her voice and the song she had been practicing for weeks. "Good evening, everyone," she said. Her voice carried clearly through the hall without amplification. "Tonight I want to share something special with you. A song about home, about the places we remember and the places we dream of finding." Dr. Moran Lee sat in the third row, her notebook ready. As a xenobiologist, she studied how different species reacted to human culture. She had been documenting alien responses to Luna's concerts throughout their journey, but her findings puzzled her. The reactions went far beyond normal emotional responses to music. Luna closed her eyes and began to sing. Far beyond the silver stars, where ancient rivers flow. Her voice started soft and low, like a whisper carried on the wind. The melody was simple, almost like a lullaby, but there was something underneath it that made the air itself seem to vibrate. The human passengers leaned forward in their seats, drawn by the familiar beauty of her song. But the aliens began to react in ways that made no sense. A saurian in the front row, a diplomat named Kresh who had been traveling with his family, suddenly stiffened. His large eyes grew wide, and he made a sound deep in his throat like a wounded animal. His wife reached for his hand, but she was making the same sound. Within moments, every saurian in the hall was crying. Not the quiet tears humans shed when moved by music. These were deep, body-shaking sobs that seemed to come from somewhere far deeper than sadness, where memories dance in golden light, and voices call us home. Luna's voice grew stronger, reaching notes that seemed impossible for a human throat to produce. The Vexari began to pulse in unison, their crystalline bodies flashing in rhythm with her words. But it was not just flashing. They were singing along, creating harmonies and frequencies that human ears could barely detect. Dr. Moran Lee scribbled notes frantically. The Vexari had never been known to harmonize with other species. Their vocal structures were completely different from mammalian throats, yet somehow they were matching Luna note for note. The gaseous nebulons, floating in their containment suits near the back of the hall, began to swirl and pulse with patterns of light that matched the rhythm of the song. Their translator devices started clicking rapidly, trying to process emotions and concepts that had no words in Galactic standard language. Through endless void and burning suns, the path leads ever on. Captain Jinho Park felt his hands trembling. He had served on interstellar vessels for 20 years and had never seen anything like this. The aliens were not just listening to Luna's song, they were living it, experiencing it in ways that seemed to bypass their conscious minds entirely. A young saurian, barely past hatching age, stood up from his seat and pointed at the air above Luna's head. He spoke in his native tongue, his voice filled with wonder. The translation came through the hall speakers a moment later. "The singing mother, the voice from the first dream." Other young aliens began to speak, pointing and calling out in their own languages. The translations flooded through the system faster than the computers could process them clearly. "The song of the old ones. She sings the first song. The memory keeper has returned." Luna seemed unaware of the chaos around her. Her eyes remained closed, and her voice grew more powerful with each verse. The song had no words that spoke of specific places or events, yet every alien in the hall seemed to see something beyond the music itself. Dr. Moran Lee watched in amazement as an elderly Vexari began to speak in a language she had never heard before. The crystal being's voice was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, but the words were clearly structured, clearly meaningful. Other Vexari joined in, and soon they were chanting together in what sounded like an ancient dialect. "What are they saying?" Captain Park asked, moving closer to Dr. Lee. She shook her head, still writing. "The translation system doesn't recognize the language, but look at their body language. They're not afraid or confused. They're remembering something." A nebula near them began to speak through its translator. The mechanical voice was calm but filled with something that sounded like recognition. "The home song calls to us. We see the place before the leaving. We see the reason for the journey." "What journey?" Dr. Lee asked, but the Nebulan did not answer. It was too focused on Luna's performance, beyond the edge of time itself where first light kissed the dark. Luna's voice reached a crescendo that seemed to fill not just the hall, but the entire ship. Every alien present was now reacting in some way. Some cried, some sang, some spoke in languages their own species had forgotten. But all of them were focused entirely on the small human woman on the stage. Then something extraordinary happened. The lights in the hall began to dim on their own. But instead of darkness, a soft glow seemed to emanate from the aliens themselves. The Vexari pulsed brighter. The Saurian skin took on a faint luminescence, and even the Nebulan's containment suits began to shine with inner light. For a moment that lasted an eternity, every being in that hall seemed connected by something deeper than species, deeper than language, deeper than the vast distances between their home worlds. Luna finished her song with a single, pure note that hung in the air long after her voice stopped. Then slowly she opened her eyes and looked out at her audience. The silence that followed was complete and profound. No one moved, no one spoke. Even the ship's engines seemed to have stopped humming. Then, one by one, the aliens began to stand, not to applaud, but simply to look at Luna with expressions of wonder and something that might have been recognition. Captain Park realized his hands were still shaking. Dr. Lee's notebook had fallen to the floor, forgotten. Around them, humans and aliens alike seemed to be waking from a shared dream. Luna smiled, as if nothing unusual had happened at all. "Thank you," she said simply. "Thank you for listening." But as the lights came back up and the audience began to stir, Captain Park knew that something had changed. Something important had happened in this room tonight, something that went far beyond a simple concert. He just had no idea how much that one song would change everything. 3 days after Luna Kim's concert, the news had already traveled to every corner of the galaxy. The quantum communication networks buzzed with reports, videos, and heated discussions about the human singer who made aliens remember things they had never experienced. On the capital world of Centralis Prime, the massive towers of the Galactic Council reached toward the purple sky like fingers grasping for the stars. Inside the highest tower, in a chamber large enough to hold representatives from 100 worlds, an emergency session was about to begin. Archon Velcris sat at the center of the curved council table. His ancient face showed no emotion, but his 6 arms moved restlessly across the control panels before him. He had ruled the council for over 3 centuries, and in all that time, he had never called an emergency session for something as simple as a song. But this was not simple. Not at all. General Thorne of the Confederation military stood near the massive viewing screen that dominated one wall of the chamber. His uniform was perfect, his silver hair cut short, and his expression was grim. He had watched the recordings from the Stellar Dream 17 times, and each viewing made him more concerned. "The situation is worse than we initially thought," General Thorne said as the last council members took their seats. "We now have reports from 47 worlds of similar incidents. Aliens who heard recordings of the human song are experiencing what they call memory episodes on a massive scale." Ambassador Taehyun Choi shifted uncomfortably in his chair. As humanity's representative to the Council, he had been trying to contact Earth for guidance, but the Council had blocked all outgoing communications from human delegates. He was on his own. "Honored Archon," Taehyun said, rising from his seat. "With respect, we may be overreacting to what appears to be an unusual but harmless artistic phenomenon. Luna Kim is simply a talented singer. There is no evidence that she is deliberately causing these reactions. Archon Velcris turned his ancient eyes toward the human ambassador. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of centuries. Ambassador, Choi, you speak of things you do not understand. Show him the Vexari report. The viewing screen flickered to life, showing a crystalline being that pulsed with nervous energy. The Vexari representative, Crystalline Harmony 972, spoke in tones that rang like distant bells. The song awakens the first memory, the Vexari said. Our younglings who heard the human's voice now speak of the great journey, of the world before the world, of the singing makers who taught us to find our voices among the stars. These are not memories we possess, these are not stories we tell. Yet the younglings see these things as clearly as if they lived them. The screen changed to show a group of young Saurians on their homeworld. They were drawing pictures in the sand, but the images were not of anything from their current world. They drew strange symbols, buildings with impossible architecture, and beings that looked like no species anyone recognized. The Saurian children on Kepler 7 have begun to remember a migration that happened before recorded history, General Thorne continued. They speak of green seas and twin moons, but Kepler 7 has always been a desert world with a single moon. Yet geological surveys confirm that ocean life existed there millions of years ago. Ambassador Tae-hyun felt a chill run down his spine. Are you suggesting that Luna's song is somehow accessing genetic memories? We are suggesting something far more dangerous, Archon Velcris replied. Tell him about the predecessor protocol. The chamber fell silent. Even the air recycling systems seemed to quiet. Several council members looked uncomfortable, and a few exchanged worried glances. General Thorne cleared his throat. The predecessor protocol is classified at the highest levels, but given the current crisis, the Archon has authorized me to share limited information. The screen showed ancient star charts, archaeological sites, and artifacts covered in symbols that seemed to shift and move even in still images. Long ago, before current galactic civilization began, there existed a race we call the predecessors. They guided the development of most species now in the Council. They helped with technology, with space travel, with the early colonization, efforts that spread our people across the galaxy. Tae-hyun leaned forward. What happened to them? They vanished, Archon Velcris said. Completely and suddenly. All traces of their civilization disappeared almost overnight. But before they left, ancient records suggest they embedded something in the genetic memory of the species they had helped. A way to remember them, to remember their teachings, to remember the truth about galactic history. The screen changed again, showing waveform patterns and frequency analyses. The human song operates on frequencies that match theoretical models for predecessor communication methods, General Thorne explained. When other species hear it, it appears to activate dormant genetic memories related to predecessor contact. But that's impossible, Tae-hyun protested. Humans never had contact with these predecessors. We only achieved spaceflight recently compared to other species. Archon Velcris stood, his 6 arms spreading wide in a gesture of authority. That is precisely what makes this so dangerous, Ambassador Choi. Your species should not possess this ability, yet somehow this human singer has managed to create the Song of Awakening that our oldest legends warned us about. The chamber erupted in excited chatter as representatives from dozens of worlds began talking at once. Tae-hyun could hear fragments of conversation in multiple languages. The prophecy of return, the memory wars of the ancient cycles, the songs that break the barriers between then and now. General Thorne raised his hand for silence. There is more. We have intercepted communications suggesting that several extremist groups are already forming around these awakened memories. Some species are beginning to question their current governments, their current lives, even their current identities based on what they remember from the song. A holographic map appeared above the council table, showing the galaxy with dozens of red dots marking trouble spots. On Vexari Prime, 3 cities have declared independence from the planetary government, claiming they now remember their true homeland and refuse to live on what they call a false world. The Nebulan Collective is experiencing its first internal, More than 2,000 years as different factions argue about whether these new memories are real or artificially implanted. Taehyun stood again, his voice stronger now. Honored Archon, even if everything you say is true, we cannot simply ban artistic expression. Luna Kim has committed no crime. She is not responsible for racial memories or ancient histories. She is responsible for the chaos that will follow, Archon Velkris replied. The memories her song awakens do not just show peaceful contact with predecessors. They show other things. Darker things. Things that were deliberately forgotten for the good of galactic stability. The viewing screen showed scenes of destruction, of worlds burning, of massive space battles between fleets of unimaginable size. The predecessor era did not end peacefully, Ambassador. It ended in war. A war so terrible that entire civilizations chose to forget it rather than live with the memory. The Song of Awakening threatens to bring all of that back. General Thorne stepped forward. The Council has voted. Resolution 779 passes by unanimous consent. The human known as Luna Kim is hereby classified as a Class 5 threat to galactic security. She will be taken into protective custody immediately, and all recordings of her performances will be confiscated and destroyed. Taehyun felt his heart sink. You cannot do this. I formally protest this decision on behalf of the Human Alliance. Your protest is noted and denied, Archon Velkris said. General Thorne, implement Security Protocol Alpha. I want the human singer found and contained within 72 hours. What about the memories that have already been awakened? Asked the Saurian representative. Archon Velkris turned toward the window that looked out over the sprawling city below. We will deal with that problem as we have before. Sometimes, for the greater good, the truth must be buried again. As the council members filed out of the chamber, Taehyun remained in his seat staring at the empty screen. Somewhere out there, Luna Kim continued her tour, unaware that the most powerful government in the galaxy now considered her voice a weapon of mass destruction. He reached for his communication device, then stopped. His messages were still blocked, but there had to be another way to warn her, to warn his people about what was coming. The hunt for Luna Kim was about to begin. Luna Kim stood in the cargo bay of the freighter ship Wandering Star, looking out at the crowd of beings who had gathered to hear her sing. The space was cramped and poorly lit, nothing like the grand halls where she used to perform. But the faces looking back at her showed the same hunger for her music, the same desperate need to remember. It had been 2 weeks since the Galactic Council banned her performances, 2 weeks since her life changed from celebrated artist to hunted fugitive. She still could not understand why her songs caused such fear among the galaxy's leaders. Pilot Dongwoo Kim checked the scanner readings near the cargo bay door. He was not related to Luna, but he had volunteered to help her when the news of the ban reached the outer colonies. His ship was old and patched in dozens of places, but it was fast and hard to track. We have maybe an hour before the next patrol sweep, he whispered to Luna. Make it count. Sound engineer Hana Yoon finished setting up her recording equipment in the corner of the bay. She had been following Luna from world to world, capturing every performance with devices that could record frequencies beyond normal human hearing. What she had discovered in those recordings amazed and frightened her. The harmonic patterns are getting stronger, Hana told Luna quietly. Whatever your voice is doing to their minds, it's becoming more powerful with each performance. Luna nodded but said nothing. She had noticed the changes too. The alien audiences were reacting more strongly now, and their memories seemed clearer, more detailed. Sometimes she wondered if she was helping them remember, or if she was somehow creating these visions. The crowd in the cargo bay was smaller than usual, but no less diverse. A family of Saurians sat near the front, their young daughter clutching, a drawing she had made after hearing Luna's last performance. 3 Vexari stood together, their crystal bodies dim with worry. Several Nebulans floated in portable containment units, and a group of insectoid Kythera clicked softly among themselves. Friends, Luna said, her voice carrying easily through the small space. I know you have all risked much to be here tonight. I know the Council has forbidden these gatherings, but I believe that music, that memory, that truth cannot be owned by governments or banned by laws. A young Saurian raised his hand. Singer Luna. My grandmother says the council fears us because we are remembering who we really are. Is this true? Luna looked at the child's earnest face and felt her heart break a little. I don't know why they fear us, little one. I only know that when I sing, something beautiful happens. You remember things that make you feel connected to something larger than yourselves. She closed her eyes and began to sing. In the time before time, when the stars were young, her voice filled the cargo bay with gentle warmth. But this time, something different happened immediately. The Vexari began to glow brighter than she had ever seen before, and their humming harmonies were so complex, they seemed to create melodies. Within melodies, the Saurian family started to weep, but they were also smiling. The little girl stood up and began to speak in a language that sounded ancient and musical. Hana Yun watched her recording equipment with growing excitement and fear. The frequency readings were off the charts. Luna's voice was reaching ranges that should have been impossible for human vocal cords. From distant shores of silver light, the Ancient Ones did call. As Luna sang, the nebulans began to pulse in perfect synchronization, but more amazing, they started to communicate without their translation devices. Patterns of light and color flowed between them in a language of pure emotion and shared experience. The Kithara, normally silent and reserved, began to create a rhythmic clicking that matched Luna's melody perfectly. Their translator unit struggled to process what they were saying, but fragments came through. The egg-time memories, the first mother songs, the place of endless green. Luna opened her eyes and saw that every being in the cargo bay was lost in some kind of shared vision. They were not just listening to her song anymore, they were living it, experiencing it as if they were part of the music itself. But then she noticed something that made her pause. Near the back of the bay, Pilot Dongwoo Kim was staring at her with an expression of shock and recognition. Dongwoo? She called softly, still singing. What do you see? He shook his head as if waking from a dream. I saw Earth, but not the Earth I know. An Earth with different continents, different skies. And there were others there, beings of light who taught our ancestors how to sing, how to find harmony in chaos. Luna's voice faltered for a moment. This was the first time a human had shown any reaction to her songs beyond normal emotional response. The bridge between the worlds grows thin. The time of choice draws near. As she finished the verse, alarms began to sound outside the ship. Patrol ships had found them. Council enforcement vessels 2 minutes out, Dongwoo shouted, running for the pilot controls. Everyone needs to go now. But the alien audience seemed unable to move. They were still caught in the grip of whatever visions Luna's song had triggered. Hana Yun grabbed her recording equipment and ran to Luna's side. We have to get out of here. If they catch you, I can't leave them like this, Luna said, looking at the mesmerized crowd. They're still experiencing something important. Security Chief Kang Min Seo's voice crackled over the ship's communication system. Freighter Wandering Star, this is Galactic Council Security. You are in violation of Resolution 779. Prepare to be boarded. Dongwoo cursed and fired up the ship's engines. Luna, we go now or we all get arrested. Luna looked one last time at her audience. The Saurian child was still speaking in that ancient language, and her drawing had somehow become more detailed, showing buildings and landscapes that could not exist on any known world. Until we meet again, Luna whispered to them, then ran for the exit. The Wandering Star lifted off just as the enforcement ships arrived. As they jumped to hyperspace, Luna could see the patrol vessels surrounding the station where her audience was still gathering, still sharing their awakened memories. In the ship's tiny cabin, Hana played back her recording of the performance. The sound quality was perfect, capturing every harmonic and frequency of Luna's voice. This is incredible, Hana said. Your voice is somehow acting as a key, unlocking genetic memories that have been dormant for thousands of years. But Luna, there's something else. She showed Luna the frequency analysis on her screen. These patterns, these harmonics your voice creates, they're not random. They're structured, almost like a language. and they're getting more complex with each performance. Luna stared at the swirling patterns on the screen. What does it mean? I think it means you're not just helping them remember, Hana said quietly. I think you're teaching them something that was supposed to be passed down from generation to generation, but got lost somehow. Dongwu's voice called from the cockpit. Ladies, we have a problem. I'm getting reports from across the galaxy. The Council isn't just hunting Luna anymore. They're arresting anyone who attended her performances. Families are being separated. Entire communities are being quarantined. Luna felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. This is my fault. People are suffering because of my music. No, Hana said firmly. People are suffering because the Council is afraid of the truth. Your music is just revealing what was always there. Communications specialist Yuri Han's voice came through on an encrypted channel. Luna, can you hear me? This is the Human Resistance Network. We've been monitoring Council communications. They're planning something big. You need to get to the coordinates I'm sending now. A set of numbers appeared on their navigation screen. What's at those coordinates? Luna asked. People who want to help, Yuri replied. People who believe that truth is more important than the comfortable lies the Council has been telling us for centuries. As the wandering star changed course toward the mysterious coordinates, Luna looked out at the stars and wondered how a simple song had started a revolution that was spreading across the galaxy. Behind them, on dozens of worlds, beings who had heard her music continued to remember things that had been forgotten, to dream of homes they had never seen, and to question everything they had been told about their history. The underground movement was growing, and Luna Kim's voice was its anthem. The galaxy was breaking apart. On Vexari Prime, crystal cities that had stood for 10,000 years lay in ruins, as different factions fought over which memories were real and which were lies. The Crystalline Council had split into 3 groups, each claiming to remember the true history of their people. Luna Kim watched the news reports from the hidden base on asteroid mining station Omega-7. The resistance had grown larger than anyone expected, but so had the chaos her songs had unleashed. 12 worlds are now under martial law, resistance leader Sunbok O reported to the gathered crowd. The Council is using military force to stop the memory awakenings, but it's not working. Every day more beings remember things that contradict the official histories. Dr. Yunwoo Nam stepped forward from the shadows at the back of the meeting room. He was an old man with tired eyes and hands that shook slightly when he spoke. Luna had never seen him before, but something about him seemed familiar. The Council is afraid because they know what comes next, Dr. Nam said. His voice was quiet, but everyone in the room turned to listen. I am the last living archaeologist who studied predecessor sites before they were all classified and sealed. I know why they fear the awakening memories. Fleet Admiral Sun-hee Park, who had defected from the Council military with half her battle group, leaned forward. Tell us what you know, Doctor. Dr. Nam activated a holographic projector that showed images of ancient ruins on dozens of worlds. The architecture was unlike anything from current galactic civilization, with flowing lines and structures that seemed to grow rather than be built. The predecessors were not conquerors, Dr. Nam began. They were teachers. They helped young species develop technology, art, philosophy, and most importantly, they taught them how to work together across species lines. Luna felt a chill run down her spine. What happened to them? They were murdered, Dr. Nam said simply. Not by external enemies, but by the very species they had helped. A coalition of leaders who feared losing their power when the predecessors planned to step back and let the younger races govern themselves. The room fell silent except for the hum of the station's life support systems. The current Galactic Council, Dr. Nam continued, is descended from those who led the rebellion against the predecessors. They have spent thousands of years rewriting history, suppressing evidence, and making sure no one remembered the truth. Enforcement Commander Jiho Bayek's face appeared on the main communication screen. He had been hunting Luna across the galaxy for weeks, and his pursuit was getting closer every day. Attention Resistance Forces, Commander Bayek's recorded message played. You are harboring a dangerous criminal whose actions threaten galactic stability. Surrender Luna Kim immediately, or face the full force of Council Justice. Admiral Park muted the transmission. Bake is 2 hours out with a full battle fleet. We need to move Luna to a safer location. But Luna shook her head. No more running. Dr. Nam, you said the predecessors taught species how to work together. Is that what my songs are doing? Helping people remember cooperation instead of conflict? Dr. Nam nodded slowly. Your voice carries the harmonic patterns. The predecessors used to communicate across species barriers. When aliens hear your songs, they remember not just their individual histories, but their connection to something larger. They remember peace. Communications specialist Yuri Han burst into the room, her face pale with urgency. Luna, you need to see this. It's happening everywhere. The main screen switched to news feeds from across the galaxy. On Saurian homeworlds, different tribes that had been enemies for centuries were meeting peacefully for the first time, sharing the memories they had recovered from Luna's songs. On Nebulan stations, the collective consciousness was healing divisions that had lasted for millennia. But the images also showed the darker side of the awakening. Council fleets were bombarding planets where the memory movements had grown too strong. Entire populations were being relocated to prevent the spread of dangerous ideas. They're not just fighting us, Luna realized. They're fighting their own people to keep them from remembering. Dr. Nam pulled up another hologram, this one showing star charts and battle formations. This is exactly what happened during the predecessor war. The coalition forces attacked any world that refused to forget, any species that insisted on remembering the truth. How did it end? Admiral Park asked. The predecessors chose exile rather than fight back, Dr. Nam said. They had the power to resist, but they knew that war would destroy the very civilizations they had tried to help. So they left, taking most evidence of their existence with them. Luna stared at the ancient star charts, seeing the pattern of destruction that had followed the predecessors' departure. Worlds burned, civilizations collapsed, and entire species went extinct rather than submit to the new order. But they left something behind, she said suddenly. They left the ability to remember, hidden in our genetic codes. They knew that someday someone would need to help the galaxy remember what it had lost. Yuri Han's communication equipment started beeping with incoming messages from all over the galaxy. Luna, I'm getting reports of humans on dozens of worlds who are starting to show the same abilities you have. People who never sang before are suddenly able to create the harmonic patterns that trigger memory awakenings. It's spreading, Dr. Nam said with wonder in his voice. The predecessor gift is activating in your species. Humans were meant to be the backup plan, the ones who could restore the memories when the time was right. But their conversation was interrupted by the sound of explosions outside the asteroid base. Commander Beck's fleet had arrived, and they were not here to negotiate. All resistance forces prepare for battle, Admiral Park commanded. Her ships moved to intercept the Council fleet, but they were badly outnumbered. Luna ran to the communication center. Yuri, can you broadcast my voice across the galaxy? Not just to our people, but to everyone? The Council will try to block the transmission, Yuri warned. Then we'll have to be faster than their jammers, Luna said. It's time to sing the song that ends this war. As space battles erupted around the asteroid, Luna Kim prepared to perform the most important concert of her life. Not for a small audience, in hiding, but for every conscious being in the galaxy. Dr. Nam connected his research data to the broadcast system. If you're going to do this, you need to understand what you're really singing. The predecessors didn't just leave memories, they left instructions. A way to rebuild what was lost, to restore the cooperation and peace that existed before the Great Betrayal. Outside, Admiral Park's ships were taking heavy damage from Commander Bayek's superior forces. The resistance was running out of time. Whatever you're going to do, Luna, Admiral Park's voice crackled over the intercom. Do it, now. Luna stepped up to the microphone, knowing that this song would either free the galaxy from thousands of years of lies or get everyone she cared about killed. For the predecessors, she whispered. For the truth. and she began to sing the song that would change everything. Luna Kim stood before the galaxy's most powerful communication array, her hands trembling as she reached for the microphone. Around the asteroid base, space battles raged between Admiral Sun Hee Park's resistance fleet and Commander Jiho Bayek's Council forces. Every explosion that shook the station reminded her that millions of lives depended on what she was about to do. Tech specialist Biol Kang worked frantically at the control panels. "I've got the signal boosted to maximum power. This will reach every inhabited world in the galaxy. But the Council jammers will start blocking us within minutes." Security expert Minsu Lim checked the readings on his scanner. "Council boarding pods are heading our way. Whatever you're going to sing, Luna, sing it fast." Dr. Hyunwoo Nam handed Luna a datapad containing everything he had learned about predecessor communication patterns. "Remember, this isn't just a song anymore. You're carrying the voice of an entire lost civilization. You're giving the galaxy back its stolen history." Luna nodded and activated the microphone. Across the galaxy, on thousands of worlds, billions of beings would hear her voice in the next few minutes. Some would fight to turn off their communication systems. Others would listen despite the danger. "People of the galaxy," Luna began, her voice carrying clearly through space. "My name is Luna Kim. For weeks, the Council has hunted me because my songs help you remember things they want you to forget. Today I sing for the last time. Not to entertain you, but to show you the truth about who you really are." On Centralis Prime, Archon Velcris watched the broadcast with growing fury. "Cut the transmission," he ordered General Thorne. "Use every jammer we have." But the signal was too strong, boosted by resistance cells on dozens of worlds. Luna's voice reached into homes, schools, government buildings, and military ships throughout the galaxy. Luna closed her eyes and began to sing. "Before the lies, before the fear, when truth ran free like starlight clear." Her voice was different this time. Stronger, more complex, carrying harmonics that seemed impossible for any single throat to produce. The data from Dr. Nam's research flowed through the broadcast system, adding layers of meaning to every note. On Vexari Prime, the warring factions stopped fighting as Luna's song reached them. The crystalline beings began to pulse in unison, their bodies creating a harmony that spread across their entire world. On Saurian homeworlds, ancient enemies put down their weapons and walked toward each other with tears streaming down their scaled faces. The song was showing them memories of cooperation, of working together to build something beautiful instead of tearing each other apart. When every voice joined as one, beneath the predecessor's sun, Luna's voice grew stronger, and something extraordinary began to happen. Across the galaxy, other humans started singing along. People who had never heard the song before somehow knew the words, knew the melody, knew the harmony that needed to be created. Yuri Han watched her communication equipment with amazement. "Luna, I'm getting signals from everywhere. Humans on Nor. 1,000 worlds are singing with you. The harmonic patterns are amplifying, spreading the song faster than the Council can stop it." Admiral Park's voice crackled over the intercom. "Whatever you're doing, it's working. Half of Bayek's fleet just stopped firing. Their alien crew members are refusing to fight." But Commander Bayek himself was not giving up. His flagship pushed through the battle, heading straight for the asteroid base. "If I can't stop the signal, I'll stop the singer," he transmitted to his remaining loyal ships. Luna felt something changing in her throat. The song was taking everything she had, demanding more power than her human voice was designed to give. But she continued singing, knowing that this was the moment the predecessors had planned for thousands of years ago. See the truth in memory's light, see the wrong they called right. As she sang these words, something incredible happened across the galaxy. Every being who heard her voice suddenly experienced the same vision. They saw the predecessors not as conquerors or overlords, but as teachers and friends. They saw the cooperation that had existed between species before the Great Betrayal. They saw the peace that had been stolen from them. On Centralis Prime, even some council members began to weep as they remembered what their ancestors had destroyed. General Thorne turned to Archon Velcris with accusation in his eyes. "You knew," General Thorne said. "You knew the truth about what we are, what we've done. Archon Velcris tried to maintain his authority, but his 6 arms shook with the weight of centuries of lies. It was necessary. Order had to be maintained. But his words fell on deaf ears. Around the galaxy, governments that had been built on the suppression of truth began to crumble as their people remembered what had been taken from them. Luna's voice reached the climax of her song, notes that soared beyond human capability. When the song's return at last, heal the wounds of the past. The effort was destroying her vocal cords. She could feel her voice beginning to break, but she pushed through the pain. This song was bigger than her individual suffering. Commander. Beck's boarding pods breached the asteroid base. Armed soldiers poured through the corridors heading for the communication center. Security expert Minsu Lim and his small team fought desperately to buy Luna more time. Remember now what you forgot? The peace that violence could not. Luna's voice cracked on the high note, and she felt something tear in her throat. Blood filled her mouth, but she continued singing. The song was almost complete. Across the galaxy, the awakened memories were creating a transformation that could not be stopped. Species that had been enemies for centuries were reaching out to each other in friendship. The Galactic Council's authority collapsed as world after world declared independence from the regime built on lies. Find your way back, home again. Let the healing now begin. Luna sang the final note, a pure tone that seemed to hang in space long after her voice gave out. Then she collapsed, her throat destroyed, her voice gone forever. But her sacrifice was not in vain. On thousands of worlds, beings who had been separated by artificial hatred embraced each other as they remembered their common origin. The predecessor, gift of cooperation and understanding, spread through the galaxy like a wave of healing light. Commander Beck's soldiers reached the communication center just as the song ended, but it was too late. The truth had been set free, and no military force could capture it again. In the months that followed, a new galactic assembly formed, based not on the suppression of memory but on the celebration of shared history. Representatives from every species worked together to rebuild what the predecessors had tried to teach them long ago. Luna Kim never sang again. Her voice was gone, sacrificed to give the galaxy back its stolen soul, but she found new purpose teaching young singers like aspiring artist Jiwon Shin and music student Seungho Yu. She showed them that music was not about perfect voices or technical skill, but about connecting hearts across the vast distances between stars. On the anniversary of her final song, monuments were built across the galaxy, not to the Galactic Council or their version of history, but to the predecessors and to the courage of one human woman who gave up everything to restore the truth. And in the harmony that now existed between species that had once been enemies, Luna's greatest song continued to play, a melody of hope that would echo through the stars for generations to come. The galaxy had remembered who it was meant to be, and it would never forget again.